14.1, graph, sine, cosine, and tangent functions. So since apparently this part was missing from your notes, we're going to add it really quick.
Where did I place my pencil?
Amplitude and period. The amplitude and period of the graphs of y equals a sine of bx and y equals a cosine of bx, where a and b are non-zero real numbers. So they could be positive or negative, just not zero. These are our formulas, amplitude, and I'll normally just write a capital A for that, is equal to the absolute value of lowercase a. So if the a value, so if the value that's in front of sine or cosine is negative, then I have to make it positive to find the amplitude, which is basically the distance that it is from our midline. And so for your parent functions, which are what you graphed the other day, the amplitude is 1. But with that, if it's negative, that means it's reflected, which is going to come in 14.2, where we'll actually be graphing. So in this section, other than the parent functions, we aren't actually graphing anything. That's going to come in 14.2. Because these ones are not that they're not worth graphing, but it's more important that we graph in 14.2 than it is that we graph in this section. So amplitude is the absolute value of A, and then period is 2 pi over the absolute value of B. So that's going to be the number that's in front of X in our trig function. And again, this is for sine and cosine specifically. Tangent is a little different. It doesn't have an amplitude. So characteristics of y equals a times the tangent of bx. A doesn't really tell us anything as far as tangent goes. I mean, it does, but we don't need it. It's not like the amplitude like it is with the other stuff. So the period and vertical asymptotes, I'm just going to write VA for vertical asymptotes, of the graph of y equals a tangent of bx, where a and b are non-zero real numbers, so you're going to want to make sure you pay attention to this. The period for tangent is different. It is pi over the absolute value of b. So the difference is that it doesn't have the 2 in it. Now the vertical asymptotes are at odd multiples of pi over 2 times the absolute value of b. Now, in almost every case, I can't really think of a situation where b is negative in any problem that we do in pre-calc or in this class, but we say absolute value because if it was a negative, then we would need to make it positive to find these values. So we'll talk more about the other stuff as far as graphing and what that looks like if A was negative, what we would do and all those things in the next section for sine and cosine. But for what we're doing today, we're not graphing. So we're going to kind of ignore the instructions to a point because I would rather us spend time on graphing tomorrow. So we are going to instead, I'm right here, modified instructions. Find the amplitude and period. And I guess with amplitude we should say if applicable, because if it's tangent, obviously it doesn't apply. And for tangent, find the vertical asymptotes. So period you're finding for everything. Amplitude is just for sine and cosine. The vertical asymptotes are just for tangent. And I'll put here, do not graph. All right, so number 6, we have y equals the sine of 1/5 x. So I'll be finding amplitude and period for this one. So amplitude is whatever value is in front of my trig function. So in this case, what's in front of here?
1.
Yep, a 1. Imaginary 1 is there, so my amplitude is equal to 1. Again, it would be absolute value, but since it's just a positive, I'm not going to write that. The period is 2 pi over the absolute value of b. So b value is 1/5, so I have 2 pi over 1/5. What happens when I divide by a fraction? Keep, change, flip. So we would have 2 pi times 5 over 1, which is just 10 pi. You don't have to write that step out. If you can do that in your head, that's fine. But I'm just writing it out for us to see it right now. And that's all you have to do for this section. Nice and easy. Next section, a little less easy, but for this one, nice and easy. 8, f of x is equal to cosine of 2/5 x. And I think y'all are pretty used to it at this point, but y and f of x get used interchangeably. One's just in normal, like, regular notation, and then the f of x is function notation, but doesn't change anything for what I'm doing.
Absolute value is 1, and then the period is 5 pi.
So amplitude is 1. Period is 2 pi over 2/5. Keep, change, flip. We have 2 pi times 5 over 2, which is 5 pi. Again, you don't have to write out that step, but just writing it out for us to see it.
This is really...
10. F of x is equal to 2/3 times the sine of x. So, what is my amplitude?
2/3.
Yep, 2/3. And the period?
It's 2 pi.
Yep, it would be 2 pi, technically over 1, which is just 2 pi. Uh, 16. Jumping a little bit. Y equals 2 times the sine of 8x. So what's the amplitude?
2.
And period?
2 pi over 8.
2 pi over 8, which does reduce to pi over 4. 18. Y equals 3 cosine of pi x.
Oh.
3 and 2.
Amplitude is 3. Period is 2 pi over pi. Pi's cancel.
2.
And it's just 2. All right, how we feel about sine and cosine?
Amazing.
Pretty good. Now I'm seeing
Yep, let's hit tangent real quick. 20.
Tangent same as the other two after two.
Well, without the amplitude. Well, yeah, and we don't do amplitude. All right, so f of x is equal to 2 times the tangent of 4x. So just, I know we wrote it at the top, but just as a quick refresher, period is pi over the absolute value of b. So what would this one be?
Pi.
Yep, pi over 4. And then vertical asymptotes. Now, you're just finding them. The part that we wrote up here about them being at the odd multiples of that, you don't actually, like, that's just something that you need to put in your head. You don't need to write odd multiples of every single time that you do the problem.
pi over 8 or 2 absolute value.
So pi over 2 times absolute value of b, which you said is pi over 8. Yep.
Wow.
Now, if you write an amplitude for tangent, I am warning you now, I will take points off. Tangent goes like this forever, so it can't have an amplitude. It's essentially got an amplitude of infinity, because it doesn't stop, okay? So, it's your warning right now. 22, f of x is equal to 4 times the tangent of pi x. So, period would be what?
Pi over 1.
Pi over pi, which is 1. And then vertical asymptotes.
1 over 2.
Yep, pi over 2 pi would be equal to 1 over 2. All right, any questions about that?
No.
Nice and easy? 7 through 23 odd.
And then don't turn them in because, or do you want us to turn?
Yes, turn them in. The other stuff, your book breaks it down differently than the other books. So yours does just like the basic function with like the amplitude and period, and then the next section is the next thing. So we are like continuing, but that's why there's not notes for the next section, I don't think. I will give you notes tomorrow, but it's easier if we talk about them in class, so that's why it doesn't have a video.